Donald Trump suggesting that the controversial policing policy of stop and frisk should be expanded. Here's what he said this week at a town hall.
I would do stop and frisk. I think you have to. We did it in New York. It worked incredibly well. And you have to be proactive. And, you know, you really help people sort of change their mind automatically. You understand. You have to have, in my opinion, I see what's going on here. I see what's going on in Chicago. I think stop and frisk. In New York City, it was so incredible the way it worked.
But this morning, his senior communications advisor, Jason Miller, clarifying his comments, saying, quote, Mr. Trump believes that a locally tailored version of stop and frisk should be used in Chicago to help reduce the city's skyrocketing violence and make our Chicago safe again. His comments come as Trump continues to push forward his pitch with African-American voters, saying he will be the best president for them. New York City's Mayor Bill de Blasio on CNN's New Day this morning said this.
The bottom line is it created a huge amount of division between police and community. We ended that unconstitutional use of stop and frisk, that overuse of stop and frisk. What's happened in the 3 years since we made the change? Crime has gone down consistently since we actually stopped using it. You know, Donald Trump talks about stop and frisk like he knows the facts. He has had no experience with policing, no experience with public safety. He should really be careful, because if we reinstituted stop and frisk all over this country, you would see a lot more tension between police and community.
All right, let's talk about the facts, the raw data, because here's what we do know. All right. Look from 2004 to 2012. In New York City alone, 4.4 million people were stopped and frisked by police officers. 87% of them were minorities, black or Latino, and 12% of them were charged. So 4.5 million people stopped, 87% minorities, only 12% were charged. We're going to debate this all now. Jumaane Williams is with me. He's a New York City councilman whose legislation was a big part of curbing stop and frisk. Also with me, retired detective lieutenant for the Nutley, New Jersey Police Department, Steve Rogers. He's also a former member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Guys, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to dig into those numbers, and we can pull them up again. 4.5 million people stopped in that span of time, 2004 to 2012, only 12% charged. Is that effective? Donald Trump says that's, quote, incredibly well.
So Donald Trump is actually the epitome of the dangers of ignorance. Also, one of the good numbers is that there was one year they stopped more young black people than actually lived in the city of New York. And all of the data matches up to say that there was never any connection between the amount of stops that were made, shootings, and murders. And what we've seen since we've made it constitutional, because you have to keep in mind, stop, question, and frisk, there's nothing wrong with the tactic. It was the use of it. It was how it
was applied, right?
Exactly.
I mean, in 2013, the federal court ruled that it violated Fourth Amendment rights. So two parts of it, right? Unreasonable search and seizure, and also the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
So the minute you say, I want to have a proposal of stop, question, and frisk, it is by nature going to be unconstitutional. And we've shown that since then, the peak of about 700,000 down to about 27,000, murders, shootings have gone down, arrests have gone down, gun arrests have actually gone up.
Detective Lieutenant, why do you think it's a good idea? Looking at the numbers we just looked at, are those numbers that show its efficacy? Is it effective?
Let's look at the real numbers. Let's look at 3,000 people shot or wounded in Chicago.
But are they? Hold on.
Why do we have to focus?
This is NYPD data. I just want to make sure you're agreeing that these are actual facts.
I'd say that most of them are. I haven't seen them. I haven't studied them. I'm looking at Chicago right now. I'm looking at what Donald Trump said. And it seems to me that we always pivot to the negative, to what we call the politically correct, sanitized version that the mayor gave us. The point is that there's 3,000 or more people killed or wounded in Chicago, number one. Number two, the people in Chicago are crying out for help. The police are crying out for help. Donald Trump is saying, I will deliver you the help.
Why is this the answer? So I hear you. Look,
so
let me finish with this. 500 homicides in Chicago this year alone. That was as of 2 weeks ago, so it's likely more now. The numbers are appalling and horrible, and the community needs and deserves help, right? The question is, why is stop and frisk the best way to get to a solution? That's my question to you. What tells us it works?
The answer is, it's not the best way, but it's one of the ways. Stop and frisk enables the police to look at someone, and if they look suspicious, if a citizen calls and says that guy has a little bit of a bulge on his side, it's more than likely going to be a gun in Chicago.
Right.
why
No, but this is actually correct.
3,000 people were shot or wounded in Chicago.
But you have to parse this out.
Are you saying of anyone walking down the street in Chicago, even if they're on, Michigan, and they have a bulge, that's likely to be a gun? Or are you talking about specific neighborhoods?
There's a totality of circumstances that would come into stopping someone and frisking them. Now, my friend here is right about one thing. It should never be misused. It should not just be on a whim. All right? There should be a totality of circumstances. If there's a shooting down the street and somebody says, hey, there's a guy walking down the street, he's got a bulge on his right side, and gives a description, stop and frisk means, hey, the officer, just based on that, could stop them and frisk them.
But see, that setup is correct.
That's different because there was a shooting, so you have proximate cause, you have a circumstance.
The conflation comes in because when you say that, people think that that's what Donald Trump is suggesting.
All right, guys, I'm taking you to a live press conference right now. The governor of North Carolina.